episode 164 of the Thunder Underground podcast. I'm Trent. Jason's here. And I guess it's time for Podcast in Chains.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to be stupid.
Let's do it. Stay started off with a pun. That's fun.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ, I just rhymed.
We've got the next edition of every album in a row.
Yes.
And we've actually been all over the place the last few weeks with several of these.
Yeah, definitely.
We did quite a few early, mid last year and then dropped off for a bit. And in the past 3 weeks, we've had one from Kiss, and then we re-released our Metallica one. In the past, we've done a bunch of other bands. We'll talk about that later. But this week, it's going to be some Alice in Chains, where we went through the whole discography.
Yes.
Before we get into that, because this whole thing's just going to be about Alice in Chains, we figured we should play some music.
Let's do it.
We're going to play a band out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, called BlackFront Ink. And this song is called Darker Shades. Darker Shades from BlackFront Ink out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Check out our website, thethunderunderground.com. On the independent review section there, Jason wrote a review for these guys a couple months ago.
I sure did.
They have a full 8-track album up on Reverb Nation.
Weighty stuff. Heavy. Yeah.
And if you're wondering, did we play that track because it's has a feel of anything we're about to talk about?
It's chainsy.
It's chainsy.
You know.
I like that. That's a good adjective.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, killer vocals, great music. All these guys' music, there's several of the songs that are heavier like that. They got some laid back stuff, but it's kind of like we said, and I don't know if it was that interview or that review or one of those reviews you mentioned something's going on up in Grand Rapids, because you're like the official music beat writer for Grand Rapids.
I can be. I'll do it.
Because we wrote reviews of like 4 bands, I think now. 4 or 5.
Yes, I mean, there's...
We started with our buddy Slumlord Radio back in the day.
Those guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, there's something going on up there, so get up there and check it out.
Yeah. BlackFront Ink. BlackFront's all one word. Check them out. Reverb Nation, Facebook.
Ink with a K.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, good thing you pointed that out.
Very well, very well.
Well, let's get into this.
Yeah, let's just...
this will be a little lengthy, maybe.
Jump into the whole... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If this is your first time listening to one of these, every album in a row is exactly what it sounds like. We just compile a band's entire discography, including any tracks that weren't on albums, that were new tracks, non-live, all that kind of stuff. Compile it into one big playlist and just barrel through it.
We just talk about it.
Yeah, from the first song to the last, all in order.
And, and what I'm about to say is exactly what these episodes we're doing is all about. In a way, I've kind of rediscovered, or I've kind of I've looked at some later Alice in Chains stuff differently now that we've done this. So, which is great, and that's why we do these, and that's exactly, the reason, I think. So this is really cool to do.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about that with Kiss. There's a lot of stuff you forget about because there's so much material.
Yeah.
And there's stuff like in the instance of Alice in Chains that, maybe you listened to when it came out and then you didn't keep listening to it like you did the early stuff. Well, there was 90 songs, or 91 songs, including the final track that they've recorded recently was the Rush cover of Tears that came out after The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here.
Really?
But, anyway.
Gotcha.
So yeah, 91 tracks, which was 5 studio albums, 2 studio EPs, 1 live album, and 6 tracks from compilations and soundtracks.
Yes.
And of course, usually we don't do live albums. First time we did it was for Kiss because they have such an iconic live album with the live. And then we just love Unplugged. And then we kind of mentioned that on there that, hey, if we ever did Alice in Chains, we should probably include Unplugged since it's such a big thing to a lot of Alice in Chains fans, and a lot of people consider it one of the, if not the best MTV Unplugged ever, Yeah,
it's definitely a landmark in the world of Alice in Chains, and, like you said, this is case to case, and this is definitely a case where you'd want to include it.
Right.
And I think people would kind of scratch their heads if we didn't.
Right. Well, just starting from the beginning, do you remember when you first heard Alice in Chains? Was it Headbangers Ball or something?
You know what? I do remember. And this is going to be a little weird, but, growing up, out where we were at, we didn't have cable. And my dad had one of those gigantic satellite dishes.
Right.
And we couldn't get MTV then, but you could get Much Music from Canada. And they had and I found that, and so they had a Power Hour.
Right.
Where they're always showing metal stuff. And the first thing I ever saw from them was a CSRO video. Usually it's like, Man in the Box. Some kids heard that on the radio or something. Not me. I had to do something different. And that was the first time I'd seen him and heard him. And I thought it was really cool. I mean, opens up with the piano, and it's like, wow, that guy's got short hair. Most bands didn't at that time, 1990, 91, whatever. So yeah, that was my first exposure to them. What about you?
Well, like you said, being here, it's like people probably heard of Alice in Chains if you're on the West Coast way before we did, because here, as far as mainstream rock goes, it would kind of, that stuff didn't really hit the radio around here until like late 91 probably. Yeah. But, well after the first album was out. But I remember the first time I knew who Alice in Chains was because of, was it Aaron Wood? Or not Aaron Wood?
I don't know.
Someone at our school. I said Aaron Wood. Oh. Someone at our school always wore the Facelift shirt.
I think I know who you're talking about. There was some guy. I don't know who he was, but he had long hair.
No, this dude had short hair.
Oh, I know Jason Featheringill always wore that Facelift shirt.
Okay, then that's who it was then,
Okay,
yeah. Yeah, like, and I just thought, man, that's a cool looking shirt, and that's all I knew about the band was the cover of Facelift, because that's what the front of the shirt was.
I remember that. That's crazy how you mentioned that, and that came up out of my head. That's insane. But that is definitely true.
And then later, I'm pretty sure I just heard Man in the Box, like you mentioned on the radio. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it really started sticking with me after more stuff started hitting the radio. And I think the first thing I probably got was Dirt, and then got Facelift, if I remember right.
Probably. I'm sure that's how I did it,
because about 92 was when I started getting into that kind of stuff outside of like the glam or the thrash stuff that we were only listening to.
Yeah.
But the first album, Facelift, came out in 1990. And
it's fucking great. It's a great record.
Yeah, this is, get ready for basically a love fest here for the first few albums, I'm pretty sure. But this, I don't even know how to put it into words. These first two albums are, there's a lot of bands where their first two albums are just unbelievable.
Yes.
Pantera, Tesla, Led Zeppelin, who else? Whatever, Metallica.
We could go on.
Yeah. There's always bands who's like, well, their second album one is great, but whatever. These two albums are as perfect as two albums in a row can be.
I think so.
And just whenever it starts off with that opening riff of We Die Young, you got something different here from what at least was in the mainstream at that time.
One of my favorite Alice in Chains songs.
Yeah, it's just it's short to the point, cool as hell. And Man in the Box, that's the second track, right? And it's like, I got to a point early on, there's a few other songs I might mention this too, but like I got kind of tired of that.
Yes.
But, back when I was younger, but now when you hear it, I'll crank it up because it's just a great fucking song.
It is.
And I always have that image, that video in my head. That's one of the rare songs where I always have the image of the video in my head while I hear the song.
Yeah. But, Man in the Box is so, it should be in the Smithsonian. It's just so like ingrained in everything, if you're a rock fan. And I agree. I kind of agree with you about how overdone it is. It's like I'm fine with never hearing that song ever again because it's ingrained in my brain.
Yeah.
I listen to it anyways. Funny enough, and it was always so overplayed back when my old band was playing out in my 20s. We played some gig in Oklahoma City and we were doing a bunch of covers, and they actually asked to see our set list. And they crossed out Man in the Box.
Seriously?
I'm not shitting you. The guy's like, no Man in the Box here. Every fucking band does it. It's been done to death. You're not doing that song. So
That's awesome.
We didn't, because it was a shady place and I didn't want to die. So, and I'm pretty sure my bandmates felt the same. So we did not do that, even though it is a fun song to play and super fucking easy.
That's like Stairway to Heaven from Wayne's World.
Yes, no Stairway. Stairway denied. This was Man in the Box denied. So, yes.
Well,
anyways.
You mentioned Sea of Sorrow.
Oh, I love that song. Like I said a minute ago, the piano starts out with it and it just kind of builds up and it's got an insane chorus. The sound that Layne Staley and Jerry Cantrell's vocals make together is something we'll probably be mentioning a lot through this episode.
Right.
It's just, it's so unique and it's so perfect, really.
This is my favorite Alice in Chains song.
Really?
Yeah,
nice.
absolutely.
I like it.
No, there's one other one that comes real close, but this is number one. And then what you just mentioned about Layne and Cantrell together.
Yeah.
Bleed the Freak, the next song, it was probably the first instance, on album where you heard, their harmony together of that laid back intro.
Yeah.
That happens a lot throughout the rest of the discography. And I actually have notes for almost every single song in this album. It's
Really?
weird. It's the only one that I did that.
See, I didn't.
I usually we just mentioned a few highlights.
That's what I did. That's what I did with my notes.
But this is, I don't know, Facelift. I'm just like, I love this so much, and I love it so much. I used to say I like it better than Dirt, but I think we'll get to that in a minute. But like the guitar riff, and I can't remember, is like so wicked. That might be Cantrell's best guitar riff ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Love, Hate, Love, as I could put that probably in my top 5 or 6 of all time as well. I mean, like, just his vocals, you always hear emotion in Layne Staley's vocals, but the emotion in the music of this one is almost as intense as his vocal approach,
Definitely.
And then you get a song like Sunshine, where it's the first one where the music almost sounds upbeat.
Yeah.
Even though lyrically...
Oh, we know it's not. Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
And then, this rounds out with like Confusion, which is one of my favorite songs on here as well. And then you've got I Know Something, which had probably maybe remnants of what their sound was before.
Yeah.
Because we all know they're a little more melodic.
Yes.
Or what we always heard, at least.
See, well, keep going.
And then finally, it rounds out with Real Thing, which just has another wicked Layne Staley vocal. On Put You Down, almost has like a Mother Love Bone feel to it, which has a real kind of like what I said with I Know Something, reminiscent of maybe a previous, a sound that they started with before they developed into what they were. Yeah. And it ain't like that.
I mean, that is, that riff is just mean as fuck, man. That's kind of what I mean, what a riff, that was my note, but I mean, I can expound on that. It's just like, and then, the chorus that it goes into, but I mean, that riff really sticks out at me. That's one, that's one that'll get stuck in your head. Like a melody of a song can get stuck in your head. This riff will get stuck in your head. I mean, I'm not into like singing guitar sounds, but if I did, I would do it,
Yeah. But that's something you can say for pretty much.
Yeah.
About Alice in Chains is one thing that always stands out is those, obviously the vocals, obviously the harmonies, the guitar riffs, and just that darkness.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to say about Facelift, because there's, Put You Down and Even We Die Young, in other moments in the album, when I first heard them in 91 or whatever, and I didn't, you didn't know grunge. You just heard good music. And I didn't think, I didn't think anything was going to change in the next few years. It's just, this is a great band.
Yeah, here's another metal band.
Yes, and you see their progression, but yeah, there's a few moments in this album where you can kind of see where they came from a little bit, There was more of an 80s slant, just a slight, So it's cool to see, now that we get into Dirt, they've really kind of progressed more and kind of grown more.
Yeah, and they're them and Soundgarden both, obviously are two of the biggest bands that get labeled grunge, and they're the two bands that to me just sounded like a metal band that had a little bit different feel to them. And
I get that, yeah, exactly.
And they were just from the area, but they also, they had the attitude of grunge, which was the depressiveness, I guess.
I think so.
Or depression or whatever. But as far as music goes, you could, if grunge had never been a thing, they still could have succeeded, But yeah, going into early 92, they released Sap.
Yes.
And this is the first, here's a big change all of a sudden. If, Alice in Chains, Facelift. And now here's a 4-track EP. Yeah. That's all acoustic or laid back,
And the first two are like epic fucking iconic songs still to this day that people just glom onto.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't even think about it. I remember Got Me Wrong being played on the radio all the time later. But when I was reading some stuff a few days ago, I didn't realize Got Me Wrong wasn't a hit until like 94. because it was re-released
on the
Clerks soundtrack as a single from that soundtrack,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's actually when it became a radio hit, and it wasn't from Sap.
See, that's interesting. That's probably something that I read or knew, but it's been so long. That is pretty interesting.
Since it came out in that time, a lot of people probably thought it was on Jar of Flies or something, because it would have fit on there.
Oh, totally. It really, it would have fit on any of their records. Maybe not Facelift, but anyways.
Well, really, the first two, Facelift and Dirt, they didn't have any just straight up songs that were like that had acoustic to them, really.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and then you've got Right Turn, which has Cornell singing with Layne Staley, where you've got two of the greatest vocalists of this era, or pretty much any era, singing together. And My Inside is a great track as well. So, this is just a killer EP that I don't know if they put out just since they were starting to swell a little bit, The record company probably had them put it out to have something out there while they were waiting on the next album.
And it did good, so.
And then later that year, in 92, was when Dirt came out.
Oh, man.
And
here we go,
I feel comfortable saying that this is my favorite Alice in Chains album, but it's so close with Facelift that it's hard to say.
I see.
But kind of what you just said a few minutes ago, this really encapsulates their sounds, so this might be why it pushes a little above to me.
Definitely. And I think one thing for this album did for me is in the realm of Alice in Chains, this album was so goddamn good, and it was so successful that it kind of made everything after it seem kind of phoned in sometimes. Even if it wasn't.
That's a good point.
Even if it wasn't.
Because I thought about that in later albums, and I'm like, but I never thought of it that way. Yeah.
Because
you're trying to, in your head, it's not living up to what this was.
Exactly. And that's my problem, or that's our problem as fans, or whatever, however you want to label it. But that's just how amazing this record is. And, there's a million bands you could apply that thinking to. That just kind of occurred to me. And we can, I can get more into that when we get into the later records. But I just, wanted to point out that's how huge this record was. Is.
And like any amazing album that's all killer, no filler, the non-radio tracks are so freaking good that
exactly.
Most of the time, they're better than the fucking radio tracks. And that's not just saying it because the song's overplayed. I'm just saying it because that's the truth,
Yeah.
Right at the beginning, Damn That River. This is one of the best fucking songs you've ever heard.
Well, let me just, okay.
That's another song your band would play. I remember that.
Oh, yeah. Well, we even did it like the album. We'd do Them Bones and go right into Damn That River.
That's right.
Because that's fun as fuck.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've made a note of is, that is probably the best 1-2 punch on a rock and roll record that I can think of. Is, the first two songs out of the gate, squashing your balls, just bam, bam.
Even better than Mouth for War, New Level?
Well, now that's a good point. Well, we
Even
can
better
say
than
metal.
Battery Master
this is
Puppets?
just, this is just in rock, you know what? Let me have this.
Even
for
better
this.
than Welcome to Jungle, It's So Easy?
Let me just have this for this episode.
Okay.
Dick. Just kidding. But I'm just saying, and this was, and we played it just like that. Alice in Chains was like one of the one bands that we all four loved, whatever. And we did it like that. And it was so fun to learn. And again, because this album is so good and so successful, it taught me shit about music. It taught me shit about playing. That's how far reaching this album has been in everybody's life.
Yeah. Well, Rain When I Die is...
even that's fucking amazing.
An amazingly huge epic song that it's got one of his best vocals ever. And then the song itself almost is just real loose compared to most of their stuff.
Yeah.
It's almost like someone sitting around jamming and coming up with this as they go, even though it's so well crafted.
I get that totally.
And that's kind of unusual for most of their music.
Yeah, it's like if this album was like a plush doll, I would want to hug it. Like I would give it a big hug, like a big one that you won at the fair. That's what I would hug this album all the time.
Yeah. I wish this album was a sex doll.
Well, okay.
And I would set it on my angry chair.
Oh man, now you're taking it to some levels, man.
But speaking of angry chair,
yes.
This is my second favorite Alice in Chains song.
Oh man,
very closely behind Sea of Sorrow.
That's another one when, when I heard this song, because correct me if I'm wrong, but this one was one of the later singles that was released from this record.
I can't remember for sure.
It seems like it was, and I remember hearing this going, Jesus Christ, this band can't fail. This song, everything they do is fucking, it's like, turns to gold.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about this is it's, excuse me. I mean, you've got this bass line from Mike Starr, which is just combined with everything else in that song, but that bass line is just so cool sounding because it's not, I don't know how to explain it because I'm not a bassist, but it's not typical sounding in a way. And, oddly enough, that and one of the biggest hits, Wood had Mike Starr all over it as well.
Yeah. But, I mean, Junkhead, I love, in that, that's a great song. The lyrics, what's your drug of choice? What do you got so I don't go broke? I mean, that's just like, it's fucking brilliant. And at the same time, it's like, fuck, that's fucking sad.
Yeah.
And that's a thing I read up about this album, and it was just completely entrenched in, drugs and, heroin and depression. And it was intense, man. It was intense.
Yeah. And the title track is one of my, this was one of the ones that listening back jumped out at me because I hadn't heard it in so long.
Yeah.
And it's just, I forgot how freaking great that song was.
Yeah.
And lyrically, I can't even remember lyrics off my head. I just wrote it down. That lyrically, I thought it was one of the cooler, song, or one of the better songs they ever had. I mean, lyric wise. But Wood, kind of like I mentioned earlier, is the one Alice in Chains song that was so overplayed to me that I just, if it came on the radio, I would just change the channel. And
even though it's badass.
Yeah, it's a great song, but I just, back then in the early 90s, heard it so much that in the later 90s and early 2000s, I'd just change the channel.
Yeah.
But now if I hear it, if it comes on Sirius or something, or comes on Spotify, I'll crank it up because it's fucking great because I'm separated from that now, I guess. And that's, another thing to point out, that was actually released before that.
Yes, it was. I remember that.
As part of the singles soundtrack.
Yeah, singles. That's right. Yeah. Yep. Well, Down in a Hole. I mean, I know it's a single.
We didn't even mention that.
I know. Well, we got,
that never gets old to me.
No. And I think as sad as that song is, something about how they do it, the melody or the vocals, or it seems to have some kind of positive vibe in there somehow.
It's sad, but the music and the harmonies kind of uplifting as well.
The chorus kind of ascends, a little bit. And
it's like a lot of Type O Negative music.
Yes.
This is really depressing, but it also makes me feel good.
Yeah. Which, that's what music should do, I guess. Really. Right. Rooster, I mean, that's another one.
But Down in the Hole and Rooster are two songs that is as well overplayed like Wood, but they never got tiring to me at all.
Exactly.
And I could listen to those forever, basically. But that pretty much covers that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
as far as songs go. But
again, we want to hug this record.
Yeah,
That's how good it is.
Well, and another thing to mention was, when we first started listening to this a couple weeks ago, you sent me a message, I think, and said, "I started this, but I stopped after Dirt because I needed a mental break," or something like that. I can't remember how you worded it. You said it's because it's so intense. Listen to those two albums, or 2 albums and EP back to back.
There's so much. I thought maybe I was going to start shooting up heroin at one point. I mean, it was fucking intense, man. It really was. I was like, okay, I need to put on some like Poison or fucking Blink-182 or some dumb shit. I don't know.
What the fuck?
I don't know where the fuck that came from. But I mean, I just had to put on something brainless for a minute because
you need to put on Flicker and Shine. Which, completely off subject. I watched that earlier when you told me to. And he,
What did I tell you, man? What did I tell you? He always kind of has that wild-eyed thing about him, but he really, I think he was, I don't think he let the cocaine be.
Yeah, we're talking about
pun intended.
Old Crow Medicine Show at South by Southwest.
Yep. Leave it to us to completely go off on a completely unrelated tangent. That's what we do best. Deal with it.
Right. Well, not long after Dirt, in '93, Last Action Hero came out.
Oh, man.
And
now this is going to be awesome.
They released a soundtrack, which is still to this day one of the greatest movie soundtracks ever released.
Yes.
And a great thing about this soundtrack was...
Fight me, bro. It's one of the best.
Was something we've mentioned many times throughout this podcast, is that 92, 93 time span.
Yes. Was
such a cool time for music because you still had the bands that we love from the 80s, like the glam bands or the, huge rock bands like Def Leppard or whatever.
Yeah.
Still hanging around. And then you had all this new stuff that was getting huge, like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Stone Temple Pilots or whatever. And then you had all the metal stuff in there.
All the metal stuff.
Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, who was doing their thing. And that was all mixed together. And you even had stuff like Black Crowes and Brother Kane getting big.
It was such a great time. We could do a whole hour on this, and we probably will. Yeah.
But the soundtrack encapsulated all that.
Yes, it did.
Because you had Anthrax, you had Megadeth, and then you had stuff like Def Leppard and Queensryche and Tesla, and then you had Alice in Chains. And it's the only band that was on there twice.
When you hear these two songs, you know why, because they're so fucking amazing.
Right. But What the Hell Have I and A Little Bitter are the two tracks.
Yes.
They were on Last Action Hero. And you hear these songs and they sound just like the stuff from Dirt. To when I hear them, I think, I bet these were songs that didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
But I hear What the Hell Have I, and I'm like, how in the fuck could this not make the cut?
Yeah,
right?
I know. It's just that fucking Eastern guitar thing that's going on. I mean, that is probably one of, I don't know. There's a ton of songs I say, it's my favorite Alice in Chains song. I don't know.
It would absolutely be in my top 10 if I was making a list.
Definitely. And it would be high up in the top 10.
But you can't think of a song on Dirt that you're like, well, throw that off to put these on.
Yeah, I know.
But it's just like both those songs are good enough that they could have easily been on that, right?
Yep. What the Hell Have I? It was amazing. And A Little Bitter, I was listening to that at work in my headphones, and I literally hadn't listened to that song in at least probably 20 years.
Wow.
And, kind of when it stops and he does his little guitar runs and stuff, I was, air guitaring right along to him. Like, that's how stuck in your brain. You knew it was coming up.
Yeah.
And it's just that's how ingrained the stuff gets in you. Those are two, I'm so glad they were on the soundtrack, but man, they could have been in on the albums.
Yeah. They could have saved it for a later album too, but they didn't. So it doesn't.
I know, yeah.
But like I said, it doesn't really need to, because that's one of the points that made this, like we said, a soundtrack that has lived on forever, at least in our hearts.
Exactly.
But then, 94, Jar of Flies came out, and we're kind of getting this, in a way, the same kind of feel we had with Sap, but a little bit bigger, because Sap leaned more to just acoustic, where Jar of Flies was acoustic, but it was also had more going on.
Yeah, there was some electric guitar soloing and that kind of deal.
And this, this is like at the height of all the stuff, basically.
Oh,
the whole grunge era, the height of their popularity. And, it was such a huge album, and even though it was considered an EP, but it's like 7 tracks.
Yeah.
And this thing is just, every single one of them is great. And it's another one that I haven't listened to straight through in quite a long time before we did this. And it kicks off with Nutshell, which is many people's.
Oh, yeah.
You see this all the time. Yeah. That someone's like, what's your favorite Alice in Chains song? And I see a ton of people say Nutshell, which is great. I like it. I never identified with it, I guess, the same way that a lot of people do. Because I hear it and I can see why people would see that. It's a great freaking song.
Yeah.
And it's got, some killer guitar work in it. And of course, Layne Staley's full of emotion and what he's singing.
Always.
But to me, I'll mention this later, this is even better live. That song, at least.
Yeah.
Well, I Stay Away and No Excuses are two of these songs that I would flip the channel when it came to the mid-late 90s. I'm like, man, I've heard I Stay Away so many times. But when I heard I Stay Away and No Excuses when I was listening to this the other day, I fucking cranked it up and was just like screaming along.
Yeah, it's like, this is fucking great.
Yeah. I'm like, why have I been skipping this?
And I gotta say, Rotten Apples had that iconic bass line that opens it up.
Yeah.
You know, that, I mean, you just know what it is and you're never going to forget it.
And we didn't mention, this is the first album.
Yes.
With Mike Inez.
Exactly.
So yeah, at this point, Mike Starr was gone and Mike Inez joined the band. And that, Don't Follow was always one of my favorite ballads of that whole time period, no matter what style of rock. Such a great song. And Well and the Wasp, totally random note, but I remember when they played, they went on that tour like 10, 12 years ago where they did an acoustic tour.
Oh, yeah.
You know, not long after they came back with William Duvall. And they opened the show with that. I think it was the recorded version.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know why that sticks out in my head, but...
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
But yeah, and I know this was one of the big, this is probably one of the bigger EPs ever made as far as sales-wise goes.
Oh, man. I mean, everybody had that record.
Yeah. All right, then in 1995, they followed up Jar of Flies with their self-titled album.
Yes.
The classic image of the three-legged dog.
Three-legged dog. And this is where I start thinking, oh, man, it's not Dirt, so... But it's really a great fucking album, so I need to get rid of that.
And it's a good point because whenever I got this at Best Buy at midnight.
Remember that? That's right.
Was this the one where I think it was me, you, Seth, and Thrasher?
Mm-hmm.
And Thrasher went
Thrasher made him go get fucking AC/DC.
Yeah. AC/DC Ball Breaker.
Yeah.
I think, or maybe that came out the next year. Maybe it was just an old AC/DC album.
Yeah.
But they did it, and he just did it to be difficult, I guess.
But he got Ball Breaker, so
right. But yeah, whenever I got this, I listened to it and it's cool. It's got a lot of cool stuff, but I remember being a little disappointed.
Yeah.
When I first got it. There were songs I liked, but yeah, it wasn't Dirt and it wasn't Facelift.
Yeah, I mean,
and you can't always judge someone on that because going back and listening to it again now, it's a good album. But I think overall, it might not be as well put together as the first two full-length albums.
Yeah.
But it's got tons of great stuff, and it's a good listen.
Yeah, I mean, Grind is a classic Alice in Chains song.
Right.
I mean, it's signature chorus.
And it brings them right back into that heavy Alice in Chains song after
totally.
Jar of Flies.
Yeah, oh yeah. Sludge Factory is super catchy, and it's heavy, but they got the high kind of falsetto. I mean, it's, And then Heaven Beside You is just another one of those classics that you don't want to hear anymore because they played the shit out of it.
But kind of like I mentioned on some earlier ones, when I hear it now,
yeah, exactly.
It's great just because I haven't heard it in so long. But yeah, and this had even more Jerry Cantrell lead vocals than ever before, which might have been there might have been a reason for that. Maybe he needed to do it. I'm sure
I think you're probably right. Yeah,
but it's a band that worked in. If this was like Soundgarden or Nirvana or one of those other bands from that era, and someone else is going to take over some of the lead vocals, it's not going to work, Yeah. But you mentioned Sludge Factory, and my 4 highlights from this album as far as greatness goes is Sludge Factory, Heaven Beside You, Over Now, and Frogs.
Okay.
And it's funny because I'm being honest here. I wrote this down. These are my 4 highlights. And then when we go into the next album, those are the 4 songs from this album they played on Unplugged.
Yeah. That was weird.
Yeah. So
That's real weird.
I guess I picked my highlights are the right highlights, right?
You did. Well, I love Over Now. I think that's a killer song. I always dug that song.
Yeah. And, Frogs is so cool just because it's a little different. I mean, it's pretty fucking long, but it's a good song,
Did you have the purple CD or the yellow CD of it?
Purple.
Yeah, I think I had purple too.
Well, when the case was purple And
in the back of it was yellow or something. But or didn't they have? Or no, yeah, it was the case because the booklet was just black and white, right?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I had purple. Anyways, that was back when, records came in packages.
Right. Back when records meant something. But this, when you look at this is pretty much the end of, well, obviously it is the end of album, studio albums, but I mean, we get a few more songs here in a minute, but.
And I don't even think they did a lot of shows on this record, did they?
I don't think they did any.
Well, I know they opened up for Kiss in '96 when Kiss got back together.
I mean, that was like into '97 because they didn't do any shows for this because after they toured on Dirt and I guess maybe a little on Jar of Flies or something, they didn't do anything again until Unplugged.
Okay.
Which was like over 2 years from the last time they played a show.
Yeah.
Which was '96, but I don't know when that was recorded in early '96. I think it came out late '96.
Gotcha.
But, I mean, when you look at everything we've talked about so far, I mean, all of that was in a span of 5 years.
Yes.
All of this huge songs, huge singles, amazing work from a band that is like, everybody knows whether they listen to them or not. You know the name Alice in Chains.
Exactly.
And it's kind of like Hendrix in a way.
Yeah.
I'm comparing it just because he has tons of great stuff, but it all came out in a short period of time.
Yeah, like 3 years or some shit like that. Well, think about it. When's the last time you did a bunch of great shit in the span of 5 years?
The last 5 years.
Oh, shit. You know what I mean. But I'll be honest. I never done anything good within the span of 5 years. And this band comes along and does a fucking shit ton of amazing things in 5 years.
Right.
So that's a good space to be in for sure.
Yeah.
And like you said, it pretty much, it's the end. I mean, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, they recorded a couple more things later, but Unplugged was the next release. And, like I said, it was the first live show in over 2 years, and it was one of the last live shows with Layne.
Yeah.
Because then they did like you said, I think it was 4 or 5 shows opening for Kiss later that year.
Okay.
Or maybe it was early '97 because that tour was a couple years long. But, like, where to begin with Unplugged? I mean, I know that you've mentioned before you're not a big fan of live albums.
Yeah.
Unplugged albums are a little bit different.
Yeah.
Than a typical live album because you're getting a different feel on a lot of stuff.
I didn't have any notes for this. I mean, I listened to it and I enjoyed it, but it's unplugged versions of a lot of their songs or, stuff that was unplugged to begin with.
Yeah.
So.
Well, my major notes from it are that, to me, Nutshell and Got Me Wrong are just so much better in this unplugged live setting than they were on record. Not that they were bad on record. They just jump out to me way more. And a lot of times bands' music is cool live, but it doesn't have the same greatness that it does on record in a way.
Yeah.
But these two songs are just take it to another level for me. But on the flip side, Angry Chair is so fucking flat to me on this album that I heard it and I'm like, I'm never going to listen to this again.
Yeah, exactly.
This is one of my favorite Alice in Chains songs, and I'm like, I don't want to hear this unplugged version again.
And if you watch it, Layne Staley, I don't think he even moves an inch the whole time. It's just so kind of like, it's just kind of haunting, kind of somber, and,
Well, that's the thing, a lot of people have mentioned throughout time is like how great this is, but how you could tell how bad off he was.
Oh, definitely, yeah. He was hurting, man.
But then the other note from this, the other big thing, is there's not a single song from Facelift.
Yeah, I know.
Which is weird.
It is weird.
And it's kind of disturbing to me in a way.
It is. That's a great record, Do we need to go back and talk about Facelift again?
We should.
Yeah, we could.
It's better than the next two albums.
Well, we got to talk about Music Bank first.
Right. But, Unplugged was also the debut of The Killer Is Me.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I remember that.
That was new.
Yeah.
And Cantrell sang that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that actually showed up on Music Bank. But as far as Music Bank goes, there were 2 new tracks that Layne came back in and sang. So they got 2 brand new songs.
Yeah.
And then there was 2 songs that were unreleased from an earlier time. I don't really know when. But Fear the Voices and Lying Season were the earlier tracks.
Yes.
And Fear the Voices was released as a single and did fairly well.
It did. And it's a great song.
And I remember when that came out, and I was like, man, this is crazy. Because that song's totally reminiscent of an earlier time period, and like even more, like we mentioned, that melodic time period before Dirt.
I know.
Facelift.
And I looked it up, and it was a Dirt throwaway.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I would have thought it was a Facelift throwaway.
I was surprised because I really thought that was like a leftover from Facelift, but it was a leftover from Dirt, and maybe that's why, because it was just a little bit more happier sounding than
you hear
everything else. I don't know. Would it have fit on, you know?
No.
Exactly. See, I think we talked ourselves through the problem right there.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it would fit in there anywhere.
Yeah. But I loved it. I was so happy to hear it when it came out. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. This is a great fucking tune.
I mean, that and Lying Season both had that throwback feel. And then Get Born Again and Died, the 2 new songs. You know, they're the last things that they recorded with Layne Staley.
Get Born Again, that was a single, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that got some pretty good traction, I remember.
Yeah, and both these songs are great. But Died is easily the better of the 2. And it's just really, heavier than what they had been doing even on the self-taught album. Because the self-taught album was heavy, but it wasn't like, this was just something like thinking, man, I wonder if they had done another album with Layne a couple years later. You know, you always wonder that, what it would have been like. Would it have been like this?
Yeah.
But then I'd read that both these tracks were Jerry Cantrell solo tracks that he had written for Boggy Depot.
Yeah.
And then he brought him, and he was recording them with Mike Inez and Sean Kinney anyway.
Yeah.
And then he brought it in and decided they got Layne to sing it, and then they released it on the Music Bank.
Nice.
So it's not really to say that that's what Alice in Chains' next stuff would have exactly sounded like.
Yeah.
Because this is what Jerry Cantrell was writing for solo stuff. But if you've listened to his solo stuff, you know that could have worked with Layne Staley singing it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah. But all 4 of those songs are great, that if you've never heard them or checked them out, go pull up Music Bank and listen to those 4
Do yourself
songs.
a favor.
And it's got all kinds of other great stuff on there as well. But we're just sticking to the, the new songs or the studio singles.
Exactly. Well, so okay, now we're into the William Duvall era. And I wanted to ask you before we get on this, and I put the record on, just kind of, the record's on blindly. I didn't really pay attention. You can tell when it's Jerry. And William Duvall sounds so much like Layne, or, I thought it was so crazy that Jerry found another singer that he could get that sound with, that, 2 people. It was so unique what him and Layne had, and to find that again is insane. I don't know how he found that guy, but, do you, and getting ready for this, I watched a lot of shit, a lot of the videos, YouTube, sometimes it seems like Cantrell sings more, or is that just me? Or they just do stuff together?
Yeah, to me, I think, at least I used to think that. It seemed, I've never really looked into it, but I thought there was more of together singing than there used to be.
See, there you go.
And maybe that's on purpose to give more of that sound,
Exactly. Man, like it's a good goddamn thing William Duvall has a guitar to play. Because sometimes he might just be standing there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of new to this because I never really gave these 2 records much of a chance. Again, coming back to the whole, it's just, I don't know how it's going to be, but I'm glad I did, because these are great records. And we saw this guy back when his band opened up for Jerry Cantrell, and Jerry Cantrell would bring this guy on stage to sing Alice in Chains songs.
Yeah. So
we saw this guy years and years and years before he was in Alice in Chains.
Yeah, he played What Comes to the Fall.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like opened for him, and I think at one point became his backing band, didn't it, after that?
Oh, God, I can't remember.
Well, regardless, they opened for him when we saw him.
Yes.
And, yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool. It's probably just something that as he was doing that, he realized how well it worked and thought, well, if we do decide to do this Alice in Chains thing at some point, then...
And it was no surprise
I've got
when...
the guy.
Yeah, it was no surprise when he was the guy and that's what they did.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, yeah, well, that makes fucking sense.
Yeah. But the one thing to point out is, just like with any band that has a singer that died or that isn't in the band anymore, there's always people that are like, it's not Alice in Chains if Layne Staley's not there or whatever. Insert any band here,
Oh, yeah, no kidding.
But no, this is the one band that I give 100% pass to without even thinking twice about it.
Oh, definitely.
And you think Layne Staley is definitely one of the most iconic voices in rock history, not just of the grunge era.
Yeah.
He's got such a unique voice, such an amazing voice. But you think of someone else from that era, Chris Cornell. If they came back here next month and said, hey, we're coming back with whoever's singing for us, I'd be like, well, fuck you. I love Soundgarden and I love Chris Cornell. That'd piss me off, but then I would probably listen to it and see what it's all about. But Alice in Chains gets that pass because this is as much Jerry Cantrell as it was Layne Staley.
Oh, totally.
Throughout the whole history of the band.
Exactly.
He wrote as much or more than Layne Staley did, and his voice was half that sound for a lot of songs. And some songs, Heaven Beside You, they had all him. Maybe?
I think so. And, I'll say it. Layne Staley was a fuck up.
Well, yeah.
So, it's not fair to the other three guys that want to keep doing something. So.
Well, can you say that about Chris Cornell or Chester Bennington? Because if they took their life,
no, because there wasn't. Oh man, I guess we're getting into some shit here.
Right.
But hey, we'll talk it out. I think in the case of like Chester Bennington or Chris
Weiland's a good example.
Well,
Weiland,
Weiland, I put
in
the same thing as they totally get a pass, just like Alice in Chains, because Weiland was a fucking mess, and it's not fair to these other three normal guys that just want to fucking play music.
Right.
But I think that Soundgarden and Linkin Park are different because one, neither of them have done anything with another singer yet or at all, and two, there was I think it was more of a long, they were doing it longer. So, and see with there was never a thing of, these stops and starts with STP and Alice in Chains because one guy couldn't get his shit together.
Right. This
was just kind of an out of the blue thing with Soundgarden and Linkin Park, and we don't know how those stories end yet. So I can't really say if, passes will be given. But I do know that for STP and Alice in Chains, total fucking pass.
But Alice in Chains even more so than STP.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Just because
it's Jerry's.
That's Jerry's band, as much as it was Layne's or Sean Kinney or whoever,
And we can get into the whole STP thing in another podcast, which I'd like to do, but.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. You've got, Mike Starr passed away as well.
That's right.
You've got half the band that was gone, even though Mike Inez came into the band during the height of their popularity and played on two of those albums from the Layne Staley era.
Yeah.
So he's as much a part of this, I think, as well.
I think so.
But you look at other bands that have half the band left that are still going, like Slayer or something, and I get more annoyed at them than I do Alice in Chains.
I agree.
Even though they've got the singer and the guitarist there, they're still missing the greatest drummer in thrash.
No fucking shit.
The guy who wrote all the music.
Yep.
But anyway.
Yeah, we could get off on it. But, Black Gives Way to Blue.
2009.
Yes. I thought it was crazy. All Secrets Known. First line of the fucking song, A New Beginning.
Not just the first line. I wrote this down too.
I wrote it.
The whole song. I think that whole lyric, or the lyrics to that song are about.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Obviously about.
Yeah.
Not technically about Layne Staley, but about having to move on from that.
Yes. And it's a pulsing song, but it never really got up. But lyrically, I made that observation very quickly.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. What do you got?
Track, just to point out one of, we're music geeks, so.
Yeah.
You always hate to say my favorite song is like the biggest song, but Check My Brain.
That was the next thing.
It's just so amazing that it's the only song from the William Duvall era that I would put on a top 10. And it wouldn't make my top 10, maybe a top 20. Alice in Chains songs of all time that would find its way in. There's several other songs I love, but that's the only one I think that would crack into the earlier albums.
I think, Check My Brain, I think it's a classic Alice in Chains song. I mean, you can't deny that song just because Layne Staley's not on it.
Right.
I mean, it's fucking badass.
A Looking in View is another really great song.
We're on the same wavelength on this album. That's just got a great fucking riff. I love that song.
And Acid Bubble has a really cool, has that change up.
Yes.
That guitar riff that changes halfway through a couple times.
The title track I thought was pretty touching. You know, again, this was an intense record, long songs, riffs. I mean, this is what this band is best at, They're giving your brain a workout for sure. Yeah.
Well, see, and they could have just, it's a really strong album.
It is.
But that it doesn't sound like a rehash to earlier music.
No, it sounds like
Alice in Chains, but it kind of stands apart from the other stuff, which is what you would hope would happen.
Yeah.
Definitely. And even though he sounds a lot like Layne Staley, at times it doesn't sound exactly. So that's another good thing. It's not like a Journey situation where you got to kind of really listen to tell it's not him. But yeah, so I'm glad they're able to pull that off to where they could have easily just wrote 12 songs that they were trying to get on the radio with.
Exactly.
And they didn't do that.
Yep, that's right.
Well, they followed that up a few years later in 2013 with The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here.
Yes, they did.
And this is another good album, but it's not Black Gives Way to Blue good.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
This is...
But...
It's got great stuff, but it's not something like Black Gives Way to Blue is just all killer, no filler. This one's good, but it's just like it's got some points where I kind of got bored.
I see that, but there is one song, and I think we both know what it is, that I think is just, it's out of this world.
Breathe or Voices.
Yes, definitely. For me, that's my song that I would put in a top 10 if I had to from these two records.
Oh yeah.
That song is just, come on. I've been singing it for the last 2 days.
Really?
It's so good. It's just fucking great.
Yeah, I remember when this first came out, this Stone was the first single.
Yeah. And that's a great song too. I like it.
I'll still listen to that on occasion, but I haven't listened to this album straight through since it came out, I think. And so when I did it again, it was cool because that and Voices and Breath on a Window and Phantom Limb are all great fucking songs that were definite highlights to me and that I'd go back and listen to any time.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked Lab Monkey. I thought that was signature Chains, Yeah. So, yeah.
But so, we've always talked about this and talk about listen to the stuff in a row and how it progresses or whatever. And even though they never did anything bad, in my opinion, but the greatness, if you rank their stuff, it's from the beginning to the end. It's basically in the order it goes.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Because Facelift and Dirt are kind of a toss-up. And then if I was putting them in order, it would just be everything after that in a row.
Yeah.
It
would, wouldn't it? I don't know, man. Voices being on that record really puts it above. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I got my Alice in Chains tickets.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Me too.
On the floor.
Yeah.
A rare appearance on the floor.
Oh, me. You got it on the GA floor part? Okay,
yes,
nice.
I did. But yeah, that's going to be awesome, even though it's like 48 months from now, but whatever.
It's still quicker than Metallica.
Yeah. No shit.
But yeah, looking back, glad we did this because I'm so much stuff towards the end, that I haven't heard in a while.
Like I said earlier, I got turned back onto some of this stuff. I didn't really, with me anymore, I'm either stuck in, roots, old country kind of shit that I'm listening to constantly, or just metal. That's just kind of the worlds I'm in. I go from that to that, and I just don't really pay attention to anything else, and that's my ignorance. So to come back to these and, hear it all in a row, and I think it was really cool, and it renewed my appreciation for this band for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know if they've released a date, but they've got a new album coming this year.
Yeah. Well,
So sometime here in 2018, we'll have the third album with William Duvall. And
I'm sure by by the time the tour hits, they'll have at least a song out or something.
Well, they're touring starting next month.
Oh, really?
Because they're touring April, May, and then they're doing a lot of the festivals.
Oh, that's right. Okay, well, never mind. Strike that.
Well, it
from
could
the
be,
record.
maybe I just missed it. It could be one of those May releases or something.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like you
never know.
said, most of those already have a song out.
Yeah.
But sometime in 2018, you'll
Yep.
get new Alice in Chains.
Yeah, and maybe we'll, maybe we'll do like a re-released version and add that on or something. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if you haven't listened to this before and you dig these kind of things, we've done this for Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Megadeth, Ozzy, Pantera, Van Halen, Motley Crue. Is that it?
I think so.
Yeah. And now we just did Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
Haven't decided on the next one, but there's tons of bands we've talked about doing it with.
Yeah, there's a few. I know we've kicked around Faith No More. We've kicked around Tesla. We'll see.
Yeah. Anthrax and
Anthrax.
Def Leppard.
Def Leppard. Yeah, I mean, any of those, God, we could do them.
And down the line, we're going to do AC/DC with Travis D. Davis from Claim Your Enemy.
And that's going to take 2 days to do because there's so many fucking, well, what we could do is just talk about one song because they're all alike and just repeat, right? Get
Travis,
the joke there?
love you. Yeah.
See what I did there?
Yeah. Well, no, maybe by the time we do that one, they'll have a new album with Axl out.
Oh, fuck, I hope not. They don't get a pass, okay? They don't get a pass.
No. All right. Well, go back and listen to some old stuff. SoundCloud.com/Thunder-Underground. You can listen there. You can listen pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, like iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher. You can find us on our website at thethunderunderground.com. You can also listen there. YouTube as well as at The Thunder Underground. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and everything else. We've got tons of these things with Layne Staley's final interview in 2001 was not on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But Gene Simmons was on this podcast.
Gene Simmons.
And that's the last show that Layne Staley ever played, was opening up for Gene Simmons of Kiss.
See, we're always going to bring it around somehow.
That's right. And speaking of Kiss, Bruce Kulick was also on here.
Bruce Kulick.
We've had John Connolly from Seven Dust.
John Connolly from Seven Dust.
You just going to repeat me?
Oh, shit. Sorry.
I was joking. Reed Mullen from COC.
Reed Mullen. Okay, we're not going to do this.
Shooter Jennings.
Just go. Fuck off. Go.
2 guys from Megadeth. Dave Ellefson, Chris Broderick. Tons of other stuff. Name some.
Oh, man. Gumby from Battlecross. Wino. Miss May I. Man, now I'm drawing a blank. We had a dude from Guar.
That's right.
Even though it wasn't really Guar, but kind of. He is legend. 2, Skylar, on twice.
Yeah,
those are both fucking great.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He totally is. So, yeah, I mean, all kinds of stuff. All the glam bands, Great White, Bullet Boys, Warrant, Trickster, Firehouse. We've all had guys from those bands on. So get into it.
Yeah. Crowbar, Death Angel.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Those are the next 2 I was going to say.
Right. But yeah, you can look all that up. Like I said, SoundCloud.com/Thunder-Underground or TheThunderUnderground.com. All right. Till next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.